just be able to have more time with each other and when. And so Kathy, about a month ago, a little bit longer, and I got together, and she had a great idea. And what it was is she really wanted to make sure that members, when all this, the members of the Tour Guide Guild, when all this stuff kind of blows over, hopefully sooner than later, that our members are prepared to be hired. And so one of her commitments is that all the members in the Tour Guide Guild have their profiles completed, so they are ready to be hired, and everyone's ready to go. Now, I don't know if you guys know Kathy, but she's been a member for 4 years. She does walking tours in San Francisco. She comes from an HR background, which I really appreciate her, because as you know, I'm more of the artistic type, and Kathy just kind of just keeps me in line a little bit, and I really appreciate that about her. I appreciate that. So she's perfect for this project, and you're really going to learn a lot, and she makes it quite easy to make sure that your profile's filled out and you have your picture in here. A couple things. We are going to mute everyone, and then you can use the chat channel. Do you guys know chat on here?
Yes.
Can you remind us where it is?
It's being recorded, by the way.
Susie, where is the chat? I have a different chat on mine because I'm an administrator, but where would the members find the chat?
Well, for me, I just press on the icon that is in the dock. It's like it's an orange circle with like a white flower in the middle, and a control panel pops up, and the chat is at the bottom of the control panel. That's what
on my screen. It's a gray strip with a little box.
Okay, there you go, Kathy.
On the top of the thing.
Okay. And
you know, I don't see it, huh?
So at the top right of the screen, you see like
settings. We
person. It says 10 after it.
Yeah.
And after that, there's an icon that's like a bubble, a comment bubble. If you click on the comment bubble, you're in the chat. Oh. And you can designate if you want to ever make your comment to everyone or to just one particular person.
I found it. It says chat on it. Excellent.
Open and close so it doesn't cover your screen all the time.
Okay, thank you. Found it.
Awesome. Okay, so if you have any questions for this, the way this runs, which is really good, is Kathy is just going to go through the process of it, and so just follow along. Everyone should be logged into their computer right now and ready to rock and roll. And if you have any questions, please chat me, or you can do the entire audience. I'm going to be monitoring it. And if it's something that it's really pressing to keep you going, please definitely ask, and we can address it. So, and then at the end, we'll have time for some questions and answers for you. So we guarantee that you're going to be set when this call is ended. So everybody ready to rock and roll? Awesome. Kathy, you ready?
Okay.
I am going to share my screen with you. Oh, no, I do that every time. Miss Kathy Richter, I am making you the presenter, and then I'll be muting everyone. You should be good to go. I'm going to mute us all. Hi, Dana. I see you on this call. Hold on. Is that you? That's you, Kathy. Okay, you ready to roll?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay. Enjoy, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Helen. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Project Profile webinar. We're going to, you should be able to see my screen, and I'm already logged into the website, the San Francisco Tour Guide Guild website. And so if you have not yet logged into the website, you should do that right now. And then in the course of signing up for the webinar, you would have received 2 documents. And one of those documents was your worksheet that we were asking everyone to complete before you get on the webinar. And you'll find that very helpful. And if you got that far, you might have chosen to give it a try on your own and met with a lot of success, and you're just doing the webinar as a double check, which would be great. And then secondly, you will have received a document called webinar instructions. And those, I will be following those instructions all the way through the 2-page document, just as they're written. And so it's meant to be a cheat sheet for you outside of the webinar time, that if you want to go back to a field that we talked about here on the webinar, or you have some questions until the time that you get unmuted, you can just make notes about those things at those segments of your, the sections on your webinar instruction document. So as Helen was saying, this can be a preparation for making yourself a good candidate for possible employment whenever that may happen. But just as importantly, it's a matter of helping, using electronic tools to help build more community among the Guild members. And Helen mentioned that I'm going on about 4 years of my membership. Time goes really quickly. I can't believe it doesn't feel like 4 years. And I can tell you that one of the reasons is that with just around 200 members in the Guild, it really takes a while to meet everyone. And so this is a very helpful tool in getting to know other members of the Guild and their credentials and whatnot. And especially for new members who join. If you've been a member for a really long time, perhaps when the Guild was smaller and you already got to know everyone, it's a little hard to put yourself in their shoes, that when you first join, it's a little overwhelming if you don't know anyone in the Guild, or just a few people in the Guild. So we want to consider those two aspects of community, and how you having completed your profile can really help that all the way around. So thanks a lot for signing up for the webinar and helping the Guild meet our June 1 goal of having every single member in the Guild with a usable functional profile. And as other members in the Guild get to know each other and the profiles, keep in mind that back to employment opportunities, it also assists in member networking. And so if you hear of something that isn't an employment possibility, that isn't something you do, or isn't really suitable for you, or you're not available at the time, a referral would be great to another Guild member. And if you don't know who has the qualifications for that particular possibility, you can do a search in the Guild database here, and you can look up some people that might be able to take that work, and that would be very helpful to the Guild all the way around. So again, if you're logged in, you're going to see the home page for the Tour Guide Guild. And in order for me to get through the webinar, we've set up sort of a demo person here, as I'm Kathy Test, otherwise Kathy, AKA Kathy Richter. So there will be some blank fields in here. The entire, this person has not necessarily been populated. And while we're on the home page, to also point out that you will see standard member directory as well as business directory. And what I would keep in mind as the biggest differentiator between these two is the standard member directory is an internal function, meaning internal to the Guild, and only Guild members may search on other Guild members. We're headed toward a kind of business directory where people external to the Guild who are looking to hire or contact folks, given their credentials within the Guild, would be able to use the business directory. We're not there yet. It's just step by step. And so having everyone in the Guild populate their profile is the first step to getting us toward a business directory. So this is external and this is internal to the Guild. And having said that, I'd like to give you a demo of what completed profiles look like and a bit of an example of what some of the other members have already done. We'll just go with one. Let's pick Michael Cohen. I don't know if Michael knows that we're doing this, but if we simply add Michael's last
Unmuted.
Jason.
Sorry, is everything okay?
Yep.
And then we click on search. Oh, I'm sorry, Jason, that's what you said. I said Michael Cohen. Somebody else. Okay, sorry, Jason Cohen. It takes a village. So here's Jason. And when you search on a person, and if you entered Jason and there were multiple Jasons in the Guild, many cards like this would come up. So if we had 3 Jasons and we entered a first name, you would see 3 along with Jason Cohen. And it looks just like a business card, and it has his contact information on it. And if we click on either his photo or his name, we will be able to see Jason's completed profile, which is what we want yours to look like as well. So Jason is based in Oakland. His email address is on here, 2 different phone contacts. Instead of company name, he has put in a description of his work, of what he does, and he's also added a title of what he does. And you will have it within your control what you choose to reveal on here or not, keeping in mind that at this point it's only available to other members, and is really helpful to them. And there's other things that you can regulate if we open it, if and when we open it up to people external to the Guild. We also see that Jason has a website here that you can click on to see more information about his credentials. Other things within the system, the computer system here, the software that you'll be able to designate for yourself. And then there's the biography section, and we'll spend more time on that toward the end. And then Jason also has a professional video of himself. We won't click on that right now for sake of time, but you might want to go back and take a look at it, as well as some other members, and see you know, how they've really dressed up their profile and got creative about it. And then a little more contact information at the beginning. So this is to let you know the capability that the system has, and also the flexibility of what you can do with it to publicize yourself best as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go over some navigation with you, and we'll do the same type of navigation multiple times. Repetition is a learning mode, and so it is my hope that this will come very easily to you after the webinar, and you will easily be able to access the fields that that comprise your profile. So first of all, we'll go to your name, and you can click on the name or on the photo, and that will take you to, no, that isn't what we want to do. All right, so, sorry. We want to navigate to your profile. And then you know you're on the member profile page because it says member profile right here. And you'll see many different sections. Some of them are usable to you and some of those are not. Now, right here, there's a designation. Since Kathy Test just signed up as a new member, I'm designated as a new member. But the rest of you are probably designated as tour guide, if you're looking at that aspect also. So the first thing that we want to do is go to personal info, and that's the section at which we will be operating for the webinar today. And then I also want to mention that there is a little red question mark here. And we had a member ask early on, could they receive a user's manual? that if they were investigating further this software on their own, they would have a guide. And the answer to that is one of the wonderful things about this software package is that the user manual is built in. And so anytime you see this question mark in a red circle, is, as it's pointing out now, is help. And so you would click on that question mark, and all the information about that particular page would come up for you. So let's go back to personal information, and first we're going to click on contact information. You know you're on that page because it tells you just went to contact information. And this is where your worksheet comes in handy. If you haven't tried it so far up till now, you want to refer to your worksheet and start entering some of these fields. And some of them will already be populated because folks had to supply a certain amount of information when they joined the guild, and such as your contact information and your address and your phone number and whatnot. So the guild would know where to reach you. And those are the fields that you see right now. So I have my first name in here and my fake last name. And so let me just say that there's also a nickname field. Now, Kathy is actually my nickname. My real name, my formal name is Kathleen. But if somebody were to search on Kathleen, they probably wouldn't find me in here because that isn't, or even know to search on Kathleen. That isn't how they know me. I introduce myself as Kathy, and that's how people know me. So I have used my nickname in my first name. But if people knew me by Kathleen, I could put Kathleen in here, and I could put Kathy in here as my nickname. So that's the basic explanation of why we have more fields like that. We don't really, there are some fields in here that we don't need to be concerned with, especially right now in the beginning of this, and sponsor is one of them. So let's make sure that your primary address is completed. If this was completed some time ago and you've moved, or you need to change your primary address for some reason, please make sure that all of your address information is accurate and complete. We do have a drop-down selection in here, and it basically encompasses broad areas all around the San Francisco Bay. So there are some limited choices on that particular drop-down. It doesn't zero in very much more than this. Secondary address is not what you need to be concerned with right now either. It's a possibility that's in the system, perhaps for some other uses, but if you filled in 2 different addresses, it would be confusing to the guild. We wouldn't really know if we had to do a mail out where we would need to send things. So I would suggest that you limit your address information to the primary address fields. Going through to other contacts, if you have a cell phone, and most people do, you can put that in right there. If you still have a fax that you use, that as well. Your email address would already be there. And let me also point out that the little red dot is a required field. So we're going to review those. Very often the required fields are what is called searchable fields. So that will be really important. Now, if you have a company name, you may go ahead and fill that in right here, or a job title or particular occupation, like a driver. And when we looked at Jason Cohen's profile a minute ago, we saw that he had those filled in as well. He was a tour guide director as a title, and he had a different definition of himself for the company. If you have a work phone that's tied to your company that is different from the other phone numbers in here, like your mobile phone or your home phone, you would put it in right here. And some members have a 1-800 number. So if those don't pertain to you, you wouldn't need to worry about that at all. Now, the main thing that we want to remember every time you make an edit or a new entry is to scroll to the bottom of the screen and click Save. It will not be captured in the system unless you do that. So we're going to click Save on this one, even though we didn't enter anything. It'll give you an OK. And from here, we would like to navigate to the next thing that we would like to do. And we, having done the save, we're still on the member profile page. But if you wandered away from the member profile page, let's remember that you would get there the same as we got there in the first place. You would hover over your name, and then you would just click on profile, and it will take you right back to the member profile page. So the next section that we're going to look at populating is the additional member data. Now, there are some free fields in here. It starts with the additional member data page, has a drop down. It's a drop down that you would not need to be concerned with and that you don't want to change. It is visible to members when you look at your profile, but as I mentioned earlier, everyone is probably designated as tour guide on your own homepage when you log into the website here. So just don't worry about changing that at all. It's already designated for you.
Kathy, I want to jump in here for a second. Can you hear me?
Yes.
For some of members that have been in the database for a while, this might be a different screen. Remember, we figured that out last week. So just know that some of this has already been populated for you. And if you're a newer member, this screen comes up. And it's, Len, is that correct?
Len, you're on mute.
Hold on. I just want him to add into this.
I believe we got that resolved. I'll have another double check after this meeting, but there was a little bit of activity we had to put in there.
Okay, great. Awesome. That's all. We're all set then.
All right.
You're back at it, girl.
All right. So
Muted.
So hopefully you can all see the first thing on the screen, for which we realized a bit of a glitch when we did this webinar last week. And so you should be able to see a field, what's called a free-form field, that says describe your educational background, including degrees and major fields of study. Again, this is a test account for Kathy Test. So I just put some, I populated it just a little bit to make sure that it would receive my entry. And then I had to scroll to the bottom and save. And so if you have not thought about what you wanted to enter here for your educational background or whatnot, or other fields of study, you can come back to this field and enter all of that later. But just know that this is something that might be very helpful. If you are under no obligation to populate the free fields if you choose not to, and that's perfectly fine if you choose not to put excuse me, education in here. The next free form field is asking you to describe your employment history, and I hope everyone can see that box. And so you can see that this is a bit of a sort of a resume here when you do your profile. And of course, there's a reason for that, because we are wanting for everyone to be able to convey and display the depth and breadth of your credentials. And so you may put your employment history in here or not. And so if you have some particular credentials that you would like to highlight, then this is a good place to do that. Helen mentioned I have an HR background, and if there's any hesitancy about how long you've been doing the work that you've been doing anymore, people are not required to go back any further than 10 years in their experience. So if you're concerned about any ageism, that is something that you can keep in mind, particularly if you've basically been doing the same type of work for 20, 25 years or more. It's the same work that you did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You don't have to designate that you did it for 20 or 30 years. It's not necessarily in your favor. 10 years is plenty of experience. And I can tell you a little story about a woman that I worked with once upon a time. She was the director of the technology department, and she was extremely bright and very technical. And when she first started in technology out of school, she was on the team, the original Bell Labs, Bell Telephone Labs team that developed voice recognition before any of us had even heard of it. And that was the biggest opportunity and the biggest accomplishment that she ever had. And she put that accomplishment on every resume that she sent out. And when she talked with me about looking for another position, I agreed to look at her resume, and she was so proud of that experience. She couldn't let go of it, but it really dated her because we're so far beyond things like that now, voicemail and and we're into smartphones. And so, and it also at this point was a good 25 or 30 years ago. And so it actually was not helping her to have that listed on her resume this far down the road. So it's something that I just, as an aside, recommend that you all might want to think about. So in addition to employment history, oh, and also don't worry about putting dates on all of your employment history either. If you have some really good experience, then there's a way to put it on here without including the dates. There's also a box here that asks you to describe any volunteer work, special skills or interests that relate to tour guiding. So that's the central theme. And then at the end of this page, please provide 2 professional references. And that's up to you if you want to put some references on there. It doesn't have to be 2, it can be 1, it could be 3, whatever you can fit in there. You always want to be sure that your references are prepared if someone chooses to contact them. And you may elect to not put any references in here. So back to the resume analogy, there's a lot of resumes that don't have references on them. And at the very bottom of a resume, you might see the sentence, references available upon request. So if you have references readily available and you choose not to put them in this particular box, you can always enter references available upon request. So then we have some checkboxes. What type of services do you provide? Again, the system is not all encompassing, but it is broken down into some pretty broad fields. And so you may click, and I think you should be sure that you click one or as many of these as pertain to you, whether you're over the road or a walking guide. If you do meet and greets, and those are all part of your credentials, please do indicate that. If there's something that is not covered in the checkboxes, or you need to add something additional to what you've indicated in the checkbox, you can always enter it in this free-form field. And I would encourage you to do that because it gives people more information about you. If you conduct specialty tours, you can list them right here in this box. And then similarly to above, you can always put more information in the free-form fields. Whether or not you have a Class B driver's license is a required field. The default is no. We have very few members who have a Class B driver's license, and if driving is something that you like to do, the Class B is quite the credential to have. And people, I believe, it is a searchable field as well. Another checkbox list, it's not all inclusive. It pertains strictly to San Francisco, but you may click any or all of these if you're prepared to conduct tours or walking tours of these San Francisco neighborhoods. And then additionally, what is not covered in the checkboxes, feel free to add in this comment field right here. Languages are very important in the guild There, of course, are many travelers from outside the US who, and so if you are bilingual, that's a very good position to be in as a guild member. So a required field is the languages, and English is automatically designated for you. English being the main language of the US. This is probably not an all-inclusive field, but it's pretty darn good. It's a lot of choices, and most people in the guild will find their choice of any other languages in which they're fluent in this list. If not, I would go ahead and designate your language here, additional languages here in the freeform field. Now, again, I mentioned that languages are really important, so there's a very specific question here in the system around languages that asks whether or not you are able to conduct meet and greets in any other language other than English. So if you do conduct meet and greets other than English, please go ahead and specify it here because it's a great credential to have. Now, CPR is helpful as well. And so if you do have CPR certification, please expiration date. It's one of the fields that we put on the worksheet, so you could check on that for yourself before you get on the webinar. You can click on the calendar and you can put your expiration date in there. And then any changes that you've made or any additional fields, be sure and click save. Okay, so this time, instead of clicking save, I'm going to do the navigation just so you can see it again, because we're going to go to the standard member directory. Okay, where we do this for you. Hold on. There's that. Okay, so we saved the best till last. So now we're going to talk about the biography and the photo, and then we'll be wrapping up so we can unmute everyone and open it up for questions. It's always great to have a smaller group where it's a lot easier to do that and everyone can be much more participative. So one of the things I want to point out about the biography here in the standard member directory page is that it's set up just like a Word doc. And that means that when you enter something in here, just by simply clicking in there with your cursor, you're able to type things directly in here. And as you would on a Word document, if you highlight it, you can bold it, you can make it bigger or littler or whatever. And then when you save it, it'll hold all of that. You can also bullet. So if there are some things in your biography that you want to state in, as a line of things, then that would be really great. Let's back to, let's see, it was on 14. You may put a paragraph in here if you choose, a few sentences, if you think that covers it. You could do a couple paragraphs, or you could get a little more creative and format your biography in a way that you think works best for your credentials. And so I'm going to show you my own biography and how I decided to format it, because that's how I felt what I felt the most comfortable with. And just to say, since this has all the capability of a Word document, I first drafted my biography on a Word doc. So right here I'm in Microsoft Word. And one of the things that we mentioned in the instructions is, if you do this previously, you can just copy and paste. We're going to copy right over to paste it right in the profile box. And you can see that it comes over perfectly. It holds all the formatting because you're going from Word doc to Word doc. So let me just tell you how I decided to get creative about it, and maybe it'll help give you some ideas. Again, Helen mentioned I have an HR background, so that's the kind of format that felt helpful to me. I started with just a little bit of a paragraph, one sentence about myself. And I call myself San Francisco Walks. So I start out with SF Walks, which is also what my email address looks like, Kathy@SF Walks. So I talk about how I do my walks in the city of San Francisco. I've lived here a very long time, trying to convey that I conduct those walks because of my love for the city. I do the walks anyway. Why not get paid for it? I'll probably be going on a walk when we get finished with the webinar today. And so I also started an Instagram account to try to leverage some social media for my tour. And I call it San Francisco Walks. And you're welcome to look that up on Instagram or even follow me on Instagram. Then I had just a little paragraph on experience, very generalized, but you can get as detailed as you want, about the kind of work I've done. Again, this doesn't, iterate exactly who I've worked for, and that's your choice. Other than I created an Airbnb experience that is publicized on their site that is called the San Francisco Local Lifestyle Experience. Long name, but it alludes to a 3-hour walking tour. And so that is what is my primary focus, which is why I completely spelled that out on the biography and send people to my Instagram account so they can see what goes on the walks. And then after that, I included some of my credentials, and you'll notice that I don't have any dates on here. And as I mentioned earlier, you can choose if you want to put dates and lengths of time that you've honed your experience on this profile. So you don't have to get really nervous about it. There's not a lot of pressure. Do what you feel comfortable with. You can also always come back and change it or update it or elaborate further. And then I put my professional affiliation is with the Guild, but a lot of you might have other professional affiliations related to tour guiding or done some voluntary work, and that would be fantastic. And when I was still living my other life before tour guiding, I don't even remember how it was that a teacher approached me and said, I have a classroom full of middle schoolers who have, most of which have never been to the city because their families really can't afford it. And I'm a big believer in exposure. How can kids ever know what they want to be or aspire to something greater if they've never been exposed to it? So I worked with this teacher and I agreed to design a tour for her to bring all the kids into the city on BART and do basically a field trip with them. And I took them all through the financial district, and we got to see the stagecoach at the Wells Fargo Museum. And just to make it really fun, I walked them all the way through North Beach into the Fisherman's Wharf, where we took a cable car ride back to the BART station at Powell and Market. So I dug way deep and way back. This was a really long time ago, at least 20 years ago. And I decided to put it on here because I think it lends itself to my credentials and says a little bit about me as well. And then I'm also a foodie, not always a very popular word, but it's true. And so even before my tour guiding and my membership with the Guild, I went on lots of tasting tours and by all different types of vendors because I love going to all the restaurants in San Francisco. And that was a great way to go to many restaurants in one evening or afternoon. And so again, I dug back pretty far and looked at all the neighborhoods that I spent time in with a walking professional and to do some tasting. And it has served me well at this point. And so I mention these things to get you thinking if you are not sure what a biography consists of or what you should highlight in your biography. Again, you can get very creative about it or not. So no worries. So that is the biography, and since we just now entered that in there, we copied and pasted. We would want to make sure that we click save. And then one of the very last is the photo, and I don't know how many of you have tried to upload your photo. You would see, I believe you would see a little box here, and then you would be able to click on the designated link here that would take you to your computer to locate your photo that you want to put on the website for the Guild. Now, just to, if you haven't done that yet, you can try it right now. And just to emphasize that your photo lives on your computer. It doesn't live on the guide website that we're looking on right now. So you would need to locate that photo in your files on your computer or in your photo section, and then click the button to select that photo, and then it should upload and you'll see it on your profile. And so sometimes it takes it might take if you're just trying that now, it might take the site a little bit to refresh. And when I first uploaded the photo, I didn't really see it. And when I got up the next morning, I went back onto the site to try it again, and my photo was there. So it's not really a glitch, it's just how software works sometimes. So I'm hoping that all of you are able to locate your photo and get that on there right now. So we're pretty much completed with looking at all the fields. One more navigational tip we're going to do here. We are going to go to, instead of profile, where we've navigated to for all the previous fields, we're going to go to my directory listing. And if you can click on that, you should see all of the fields that you previously populated or populated for this webinar. And there's some test data in here. The biography shows up, and your photo would be visible on here in the business card sort of format, as well as right here alongside your name as a member. And we also see some other fields that aren't entirely activated right now, opportunity in the future to possibly upload photos that you may have of yourself in action, or on some of the tours that you've done, or some of the sites that are to be seen on your tour, other interests that you might have and other achievements that pertain to the work that you do or as a member of the Guild. Now for the achievements, I don't think you have to wait for that particular field, because there's plenty of free-form fields in this for you to communicate to others what a lot of your achievements have been. So no worries there either. All right, so I'm going to go back to the home page. That's the end of that demo, and we can open it up for questions.
Unmuted.
So Kathy, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like your biography, it looks more like a resume. So instead of putting just a kind of a summary of your experience, would you suggest just plugging a resume in there?
If you feel comfortable with that, you can. I see Len shaking his head yes. So I don't see anything wrong with that. You know, it just depends on how well. Yeah, I don't. Len, did you want to say something about that?
Yes, you can paste almost anything in there. Whatever format, whatever content you feel most comfortable shows you in your best light is what you want to put in there. You're really trying to attract somebody to make the phone call or send an email to you. And if it's a simple, some people have pretty elegant resumes, but they don't really have much meaningful content. Other times, some people have got some pretty juicy content, and it's not all fancy and gussy. So there's no right answer. It's whatever part of what you put and how you put it says something about yourself. So you kind of want to you do want to be somewhat natural, and just have it appealing. You're selling yourself.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I get an idea of what's an example of an achievement? I'm a little confused on what that means. I mean, isn't it sort of like in your biography, like the tour, Kathy, you were talking about? That seems like an achievement to me that you did for 20 kids. I mean, is it something that has to be official? Like I was an award, I received, I published an article, or I don't know.
It's,
The guild has not done anything to highlight that achievement section. There is a capability to define certain achievements. There's no formal structure whatsoever at the guild right now. Someday that might become something significant, but at the moment it's there. It might be even getting in the way a little bit just because it is there, but it's not significant at the moment, at the current time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
I just want to say an achievement I had is I worked for EF Smithsonian Tours, and for like 3 years I had won the award of the Spirit of EF. So I put that as an achievement.
Oh, okay. So you got some kind of recognition, official recognition. I gotcha. And since also I noticed on the chat, I don't have it either. The employment field not on. Is that something, Len, that you were going to update or something?
Yeah, I updated part of it. I'll take a specific look at yours. The circumstance has to do with members who were in the guild before we converted to the new website.
I see.
Anybody joining the guild has to fill that information out as part of the application process. In the old days, we did it on paper, and it didn't convert. But we got most of them fixed. I don't know. I'll take a quick look at yours specifically.
Well, there's no field that says employment history.
Did you look at it today, recently?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I'll
Kristen
take a look.
also posted that she doesn't
Yeah.
have it.
So if you guys work on that, Len, in the thing, Kathy, I want to bring there's 2 questions about photo. One, Michael's photo is still upside down, and wants to know how to fix that. And also Kristen said that she can't get the photo to upload. Any thoughts?
It might be the size, Kristen. It might be too big. I'm sorry. Kathy, that was directed towards you. Great webinar, by the way.
No, I don't think it's the wrong size. It's the same size that I put on my resume. So it's, set up for a smaller type of thing. I just don't, I think I don't have the correct setting. It's not in I think it's not in the proper format that I can upload it, and I don't know how to do that.
I'll work with you on that, Kristen. If you want to stay on the line right after the
Okay.
after the session, and
Okay.
it looks like I might not have clicked save when I corrected Michael's picture before. I'm not. I think if you go in there now, I think that will show that he is in the northern hemisphere. No, it didn't stick. It didn't stick. It looks like we got a little bit of work to do on that.
Lynn or whoever does the website, I'm on the business information and description form. And every time I try to save it, first it said I didn't have a business name, so I just put in tour guide. Then it said business category. So I chose step on. Business type then comes up with a pull down, but there's nothing in it. And then when I go to save it, it says you have to have a business category, and the step on field is then blank again. The business category field has become blank. So there's a little glitch with that. I've tried every different type of business category as well.
I think you're talking about the business directory. Is that where you're at?
Well, I'm on a page that on the top says business information and description.
Okay, well, hold on.
Okay.
And your name is Miller.
113.
but I think you're on the, let's do a search on you.
He's on the business directory and the personal information.
Okay, yeah,
The
that
business-
isn't something that this webinar addresses.
Right.
I'd be happy to work with you, Donna, a little later on this afternoon, just to learn. I believe what you're describing is the reality of the fact that we have not completely configured the business directory component in the guild,
Okay.
because there's not been a full acceptance
Right.
of
Okay.
the functionality. And my guess is
Okay.
you're wrestling with stuff that's not been completely set up. But nevertheless,
Okay.
I'd still like to look at the specifics of what you're looking
All right. I can't do it this afternoon. Some other time, I still have to do the description and all sorts of other things. So thank
Okay.
you.
for. Good.
Okay, so we have Michael. Len, you're working with Michael and his photo, correct?
Yep.
And then Kristen, and we're going to work with getting that field populated, and then I made a note the business profile needs a little bit of working. Does anyone else have any questions?
So I had a couple questions. So what's the difference between the business directory and the standard member directory?
Kathy, do you want to address that, or Len, or?
I can do it a little bit. So you remember when we first started out that I mentioned the standard member directory was for people internal to the guild, for members of the guild. And the business directory was for people external to the guild.
Ah, okay.
So let's say, so the business directory would be used if, let's say, I own, big bus tours or something, the big buses that, the hop on hop, let's say I own hop on hop off bus and I need a driver or a tour guide and I'm not a member of the guild, then I would go to the business directory. But that functionality is not available at this time for anyone, for a guild member to populate or for anyone who is outside of any businesses to search. That is not a capability of this right now.
Got it. And I was thinking for achievements, we could put down like, I've gotten like over 30 TripAdvisor reviews, or I've gotten mentioned in Vietnamese publication, right?
Oh, why not? That's a very creative.
I got you, Isabella. That's great. Yeah, I get it. Hey, I had some of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to say that as we're looking at, the business profile is something that we might be using in the future, and looking at that, especially with how the landscape of things are going to be working moving forward. And but we really want everyone to get their standard member profile fit in, because that is the first step to the networking of our community and then moving forward. So this is a way we're looking at this as a way to network, to get to know each other, because that is one of the best ways to get employment, is through
Well,
people.
for one thing, the member profile that we're working on right now is fairly essential to the functionality of the business directory. If members don't do this part first, their profile, their basic profile we're talking about, then the business directory is not that useful. So they are connected, there's overlap in that way, to that extent. So you really want to get your standard member profile here good to go before you can move to the business directory, which is one of the reasons why the guild set the goal of June 1 to get everyone doing this. Because let's say somewhere down the line, the guild is ready to use the functionality of the business directory, and there really is someone over at Hop on Hop Off that wants to hire a guild member. Your business directory isn't going to be coherent or usable. They're not going to find you because you didn't populate all the required fields in your own profile. So, we don't want all this backlog of members going, well, how come I'm not getting selected for jobs? Well, maybe you should have gone on the webinar.
You tell them, Kathy.
You've done a great job, Kathy, I gotta say.
Yeah, great job.
I mean, I'll continue to do the webinar. I mean, as more and more members, if they need assistance or an overview, I have no problem with adding on more webinars of this kind. So, tell your guild friends, start asking around whether they have it completed or not, because it might be a while, but now is the time when we have a lot of downtime right now that most of us aren't working. So this is a really good opportunity for the guild to hit that goal.
Is there some way to post this recording on one of the forums so people can just watch it when they can?
We're looking at it. It has to be changed through the system, and Len and I are looking at that and how to set that up. So it's definitely on our radar right now.
Okay, cool.
If I can jump in, my goal would be to have it up on YouTube by 5 o'clock today. I'm getting better and better at it, but this one has gone particularly well. This is the best one so far, and I know that there's a process takes about a half an hour, 45 minutes once we get completed, and then it's uploading to YouTube. And if nobody has utilized any profanity in the thing, YouTube will accept it. I
Yeah.
don't anticipate any problems today.
That's why I muted myself, Lynn.
Super.
Well, this is awesome. We are at 1:59, Kathy. So,
Perfect.
if anyone has any more questions, we can do that. But if not, we'll just bring it to a close. And I just want to, Kathy, do you have anything else you'd like to say before I close it?
I think we're good. I just want to thank everyone really for helping, for doing your part for yourself, but, for the guild at large and being participative and helping reach this goal for June 1.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been very helpful.
Good.
Kristen.
I'm happy to hear it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I love you. I'm going to give you a little heart here. And
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, tell your friends. If you know some member that you're close to or whatever that doesn't have their profile, go check them out, and then tell them to come check either the YouTube, or we'll probably be making another couple webinars in the future. So thank you, and have a fabulous day.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Well,
Bye.
Bye.